All right. Well, welcome everybody to our monthly webinar. We're very, very happy to have you with us. Our topic today is something very special to us because it's kind of what we do or what we try to inspire at Creoate. It's basically how to get from local kind of sidepreneur to global entrepreneur. My name is Will. I am the CMO of Creoate, and it is my great pleasure to welcome you to this webinar. You might be asking yourself, for those of you who are new to Creoate or to our series of webinars, you might ask yourself, so what is Creoate, and how do I eat it, or where do I go to travel to it, or so pretty basic. Creoate is a wholesale marketplace that is designed and created to inspire, help, and empower independent business owners and entrepreneurs, and giving them all the tools to thrive. So we connect both wholesalers, independent wholesalers, with retailers, and we try to curate not only the type of items that we have on our store, but also try to empower all of our retailers with everything they would need to actually make their business successful by stocking or having the adequate items in their stores. So with that, I would like to introduce you to our host for this evening. And I think we can go to the next slide. And this is Hannah, also works at Creoate. It is great pleasure. You are in fantastic hands. And Hannah, take it from here.
Thank you, Will. Hi, everyone. Yeah, so great to have you here. I'm really excited to introduce you to the wonderful panel that we have to talk today, all about the topic of, as Will said, how to take your side hustle and turn it into something that's a bit bigger than that, basically. So as usual for these events, my aim is to talk as little as possible and give as much time as possible to our wonderful panel. So with that in mind, I'm going to hand over to them now to introduce themselves, starting with Karina.
Hi everyone, it's such a pleasure to be here, and thank you so much for Creoate for creating such a wonderful space for small business owners like myself. I am the owner of Ponder Lily Paper and Planners, and we create sustainably made productivity products for people who are incredibly busy, and we help support them through our products from work to weekend. We primarily make planners and diaries for women who work, who put everyone else on their agenda before they put themselves on the agenda. So we help them do that by creating productivity tools that help them create a sustainable schedule.
Thank you so much. And Sarah.
Hello everyone, my name is Sarah Drew. I'm based in Cornwall. I make jewellery from a lot of found materials, lots of things like beach plastic and ghost string. And it's made a massive difference being on Creoate to me. I was just speaking about that earlier. I've been able to get a lot more suppliers and stockists from different countries, and it's really made a massive difference to my business. So I'm really happy to be here and talk to you all today.
Thank you so much, Sarah. At this point, so I would have introduced Joanne at this point. She actually hasn't joined us yet. I think she might be having some difficulty joining. So hopefully she'll be able to stop by later. And in the meantime, Ashley, I'll hand it over to you.
Hi guys, I'm Ashley. So I'm the founder of Creoate. Prior to launching Creoate, I actually had two retail businesses, so one e-commerce and one store. So physical store I ran in central London. And even before that, I worked in finance for many, many years and actually ran my first e-commerce business as a side hustle for almost a year before finally making that first leap. So I understand, all the challenges that go with that. And I'm really excited to talk about that today.
Cool. Thank you so much, Ashley. That actually brings us on really nicely to the first topic area that I wanted to talk about. So I think for a lot of people, when they're growing this kind of side business, the goal to go full time is there, but it's sometimes quite a scary decision, hard to know when exactly to make that leap or to plan for it. Ashley, maybe I could come to you first to talk about how you made that decision.
Yeah. So I did run my first e-commerce business on the side for about a year before I finally, quit my job, went all in. Even I think making that first decision to even invest in the business, so that was quite a big decision as well. I went through, I think for that first step, what made me, decide to make that decision was something that I couldn't stop thinking about. It was really all consuming. And so, you have these other ideas, they maybe don't consume you, but it was something that I was like dreaming about. I was waking up in the middle of the night. So that's when I decided to make the investment. I ran that for a year, and, to make the next decision to go full time was really when I had stretched myself to the max and I couldn't possibly keep doing my actual full-time job. And the business had some legs. There's certain things, with an e-commerce business, you have to do a lot of setup, you have to have products. So I definitely wouldn't have wanted to quit before doing that initial investment and laying the foundation. But that's how I made the decision to take that second leap, really.
Absolutely. I think, there's always that slight element of a leap of faith. Sarah, tell me a bit about how you started Sarah Drew Jewelry, because I know yours was quite a different story. Yours sort of became full-time by accident, or not by accident, but...
Yeah, no, well, when I think back, my lads are teenagers at the minute and they're making lots of decisions at the moment, and I made all the wrong decisions when I was their age. I did the wrong degree, and but all that time I was making jewellery in my spare time to give to family and friends, and loved it. This is what I wanted to do in my free time. I did management training at Selfridges, so I had a bit of a background in retail. I did their retail management training, and then it didn't really suit me. So me and my husband went off travelling, went to Australia, and I think Australia was a really inspiring place for me because it just felt like anything was possible there. And I was making jewellery there because I was really inspired by the beautiful surroundings and everything. But then I went to some shops in Sydney and said, would you stock my necklaces? And they did, and they were really cool shops. And I think it was a confidence thing for me. So I think it was that confidence of people wanting to sell what I was making that made me, give me that confidence. And as we were traveling around Australia, I sold things as I went around to fund our trips. Even when we completely ran out of money, we managed to sell bracelets to get some petrol. And, so I think that whole thing of being able to rely on it gave me a lot of confidence. So when I came home, it wasn't such a big leap for me because I didn't have a very good job. I was just doing rubbish temping jobs. So I was like, well, I may as well try this now. I've got that confidence that people wanted to buy this stuff. So then it made me think, well, I'll try this. And then I could get some help from the government. They gave me 6 months marketing time. So I could that really helped me be able to test the market and try things out before it was like before I didn't have any money. So that really helped, I think, for me, that I got that support from the government and just that confidence level that made me think, okay, I can do this as a living and this is how I can create the job that I want, rather than, having to follow the wrong decisions that I made when I was younger.
Absolutely. I love that story of you, selling that bracelet in Australia to get the money for petrol. I think it just shows what you can do when you need to put your mind to something. Absolutely.
Yeah,
and
the things I made were allowing us to survive, and that was quite a big deal to me. It was like, okay, so I can make a job out of this, I can make a living out of this.
Yeah, absolutely, love it. And Karina, tell me a bit about you, because you actually don't work at Pondilly full time. Pondilly is technically still your side hustle, even though it's doing so fantastically, because you're a productivity wizard. So tell me a bit about that, and how you kind of juggle both, and when you think you would want to go full time, or if you would want to go full time with it.
Absolutely. So my passion, well, at the age of 8, I figured if I slept in my school uniform, I would have more time to sleep in the morning. So that's where really my passion for productivity kind of came up. And I learned from a very young age that productivity is personal. Like the way that I organize my schedule wasn't necessarily the same way that my schoolmates would organize their schedules, or even in college, I had 2 jobs, so I could pay for school and most other students were full-time students, and that's the only thing they did. They didn't necessarily have other jobs. So I found that as I was doing my master's thesis on workplace wellness, I found that a lot of women would be the ones who would work the extra hours. And in speaking to those women, and at the time I was babysitting for my professors, I was always interested in learning about, what it is that they did in their spare time. And what I found is that especially women in their spare time would take care of their families, or they would take care of an elderly parent, or they would do something else for someone else, rather than putting themselves on the agenda. And that became very apparent to me when I had my twins, and they were 5 months old. I was diagnosed with a chronic illness, and I realized that I had been doing the same. I was putting everyone else like on the forefront. And as we wear so many different hats, I decided that I wanted to start making empowered decisions with my time about my health and about my family, and about the things that I enjoyed doing that made me feel like myself again. And I've always had a passion for planners, and I would always create my own using Microsoft Word. I'm not a trained designer. My bread and butter is being a business analyst. And I spend my 9 to 5 helping large organizations and higher education institutions to make more use of their time and their resources. Excuse me. So I leaned into this very specific skill set, and I designed a 1-page business plan for what it would look like to have a planner company, so that I could design something that could help women put themselves on the agenda every day. And mind you, my twins were only 5 months old at the time. I only had 15 minutes at a time in between nap time and changing their nappies and putting them to sleep and things like that. And every single day for 15 minutes, and like Ashley mentioned earlier, it just became like an all-consuming thing. And I really enjoyed working on my business. And when I presented this 1-page business plan to my father-in-law, who had worked with before, he was retired at this point, he's like, "You could actually make this work." I said, "Do you know what? Let's just do it." So we've been in business ever since. And again, like, I still work full time. Every order that we package for Creoate that goes to our customers, whether it's going to a large department store or like going to an individual, like, he packages them. I design the products still in my in-between moments, like either at lunch, at work in the cafeteria, or when we go on holiday and things like that. And then I do the production, the marketing, and I absolutely love it. So because of this specific skill set that I have in designing business processes, I know that we have a very lean and very efficient operation. So when the time comes to go full time, my husband works overseas, which is why I'm dialing in from Doha, Qatar at the moment. So when it is time for me to go full time, I know that we have the systems and the processes and the infrastructure in place to do that. And Creoate was absolutely instrumental in this decision, because you won't see me like going on TikTok and showing what I've had for breakfast or showing the behind the scenes. Like, Ponder Lily is designed for wholesale. This is how I made it work at this particular point in time. And it's just been such a rewarding experience so far to see our planners in stores. So it's just been a wonderful, wonderful experience to date.
That's great. And I'm really interested to know what, for you to reach the point where you want to go full time, is that going to be when it's right for you personally? Are you waiting to hit a certain number of stockists, or like how are you taking that decision?
Yeah, like, I'm waiting to hit a certain number of stockists, and so that when we move permanently back, and we're not back and forth, like, so it would be great to be able to do that then. And I think it's going to be a personal call too. Like, as my children grow older, I genuinely want to be with them more. So working full time and having a side hustle is not going to be feasible. So I would like to be able to eventually go full time with Ponder Lily, and I just I can't wait, to be honest. And but it's so exciting that my coworkers are incredibly supportive, and the company where I work is incredibly supportive. And every once in a while, somebody will come in my office and be like, "Do you know, could you design a notebook that's like that I can like take my notes this way, or it's this size?" And I love it.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And that brings me on really nicely to the next area that I wanted to discuss with you guys, which is all about hiring your first employee or getting that first kind of paid help in your business. I know for a lot of people, well, of course, it's a really big decision. If you go from being one person to two people, you need to make sure that you hire the right person, doing the right skills at the right time. So really difficult balancing act. And Ashley, maybe I could come to you again first for this one to talk about when you first, or how you made that decision, and if you think you got it right.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. So I actually did hire someone. I don't know, I mean, it was a freelancer. So, but I did hire someone straight away, even while I was working on the side, because I found, you know, what needed to be done, what needed to get the business off the ground was actually something that I could do a little bit of, but I needed someone else, you know, different type of skills. So I really leveraged these, I mean, platforms, which, I mean, I think it was like 6 years ago that I started using things like Upwork. I think there's a couple other ones out there. And I really leveraged that for whether it was a full-time, a part-time, a project, all kinds of different skill sets are out there. So I used that. And I definitely think that was the right solution for me at the time for the business. And then in terms of bringing on a full-time, you know, physical UK employee, that was only at the beginning of 2020. So that was more into Creoate's journey. I mean, when I had a store, I also brought in, you know, people to work in the store. But if I'm talking about Creoate specifically now, yeah, it's still, you know, we had built the platform. We'd done a lot of the work to set up, for example, the design, the technology. And for me to bring on the full-time employee, it's a big commitment. And I wanted to make sure that if I was taking someone on, I had, you know, I knew that I could pay them. I knew that they could also bring a return on investment to the business. And so that was a big decision. I definitely took my time to take that. But I think there's so many resources out there to use freelancers, especially if you're just getting something off the ground. And I definitely recommend to friends who are launching businesses to wait as long as possible. Like, you know, of course, it depends on the type of business, but, you know, try to use whatever other resources are out there before you make that, you know, jump yourself to go full time. There's a lot out there. So, yeah.
And do you have any tips? I think platforms like Upwork and Fiverr can be a bit of like, can be a real mixture in terms of quality. Like, do you have any tips on screening or like being specific in what you need, or how do you get the most out of those platforms?
Yeah, I definitely always do the interview, like set the interview questions. And I think what I found to be the most successful is you have to invest a bit of time up front in, you know, whether it's a process manual or very clear instructions. And it does take a little bit of investment up front, but, you know, that if you follow these steps and, you know, they are flexible and, you know, you can, if it doesn't work out, you can find the next one, and, you know, you have a good process to get someone trained up quickly. But I find doing that investment up front, whether it's the questions, the process manual, spending time with them on an interview, even a couple of interviews, is worth it in the long run.
Amazing, thank you. And Sarah, tell me about who you have working for you. I think you have some different people making jewelry now, is that right?
I have. It's really hard. I found that really difficult, and I always thought I was a laid-back person until I tried to take people. And I always thought, because I've been making jewelry for so long, and you kind of assume it's patently obvious how to make something if somebody can make something, and you know. But then like you say about the specifics, I'd completely underestimated that. And my mum lives on a canal boat in Chester, and I've been sending her. She cuts out some of the earrings for me. And she cuts them out really beautifully and really well. And I make these pebble earrings that are one of my best sellers, and they're basically soldered on that way. And I didn't say that. I just thought it was a given that it was that way around. And she sold them all on that.
No.
Pairs of earrings. So that's been quite a learning curve. And yeah, realizing how fussy I am, because it does really matter the standard of you know what I'm making. and you can't get cross with somebody if you haven't been specific. So you have to, I think you've just got to go back to when you were learning and remember the whole processes and try and get that across. And people have surprised me. My lad Alfie, he's working for me as well now, and he's really neat. He's really precise. He's a skateboarder, so he's got this quite chill sort of personality. But when it comes to, he measures everything out. He's really mathematical about it. So I've had some really nice surprises. And I think it's just a case of remembering how to manage. Like I used to be a manager, it's remembering how to manage people and empower them, and basically, you know, build the skills up in a nice way that creates a team. But it is something I underestimated when I first started. I thought it'd be easy, and it hasn't. It hasn't really been easy. But I feel much better because I was getting too much work. I was getting really stressed, and I was working too long. And that's when I decided to hire people, and that was quite hard. I think when you've been like a sole trader and a maker on your own for so long, you're so used to doing everything, it's quite hard to admit that you can't do everything and you need some help, and you've got to let go of the reins a little bit, which is a bit scary.
Yeah, absolutely. So how long were you running the business for just by yourself before you got other people involved?
Yeah, 20 years really. I mean, yeah, it's only really last year or so that I've taken people on. So yeah, I've been doing it 20 years on my own. Yeah.
And in hindsight, would you have hired someone a bit sooner, or was that the right time for you?
I think as Ashley was saying, I was always a bit scared about being able to afford to pay them. I'd feel awful if I had to let people go and things like that. And how I'm doing at the moment is quite freelance sort of situation. So they make things in their own workspace. So it's a bit like piecework really. So I think that suits me at the moment. I haven't got a full-time member of staff that I have to pay a wage to all year. So I don't think I could have afforded it earlier, because as my lads were growing up, the business was quite like a part-time thing. So it's only been the last 5 years or so that it's been full-time.
Absolutely, makes sense. And Karina, tell me about the hires that you've made at Pond Lily and your kind of thinking behind those.
Sure. So the first person I engaged like 3 months in was an accountant, because Ponder Lily, like our products are dated, which means they depreciate the minute like that January 1st rolls around. So that means that our revenue is very cyclical. It's also one of the reasons why I'm waiting to kind of even out the revenue a little bit before I go into full time, because at the moment our sales are generally, like I said, like we sell most of our products towards the end of the year and the beginning of the year. So having an accountant early on was very important to me, because we have to mass produce our planners ahead of time, which means that there's a quite significant amount of investment upfront. And I wanted to make sure that we were pricing our products fairly, and we were making sure that we were getting that I was going to be able to make a living from like the number of hours that's invested. And there's so many things with a product-based business, from packaging to raw materials to the marketing budget, and I just wanted to make certain that I was getting that right. So engaging an accountant was definitely important for me right from the beginning, because I wanted to work with them as a partner to help me price the products not only for retail but for wholesale as well. And then the second hire and of course my father-in-law, when we first started working together, he refused to get paid. And then there was at one point he's like, why don't you just pay my golf membership? And I'm like, no, we're doing this right. So he manages the logistics, but because I do work a 9 to 5, and there is an office where we store our products, and that office happens to be manned as well. So there is a receptionist that works there. So any time that we have returns, that receptionist will take the calls or will let me know. And so that's really nice to have, because I can't operate the business like during regular working hours. So having that system in place was incredibly important, and having that person in place is still paramount. And so yeah, we've been working together since the company started, really.
Wow, yeah, that's amazing. You can get someone in from the beginning and who really understands.
Yeah,
really understands the business.
And there's things I'm just generally, it's just not in my zone of genius. Like social media marketing is something that I will run away from as much as possible. I'm very, very hands-on, like with the design and the product and the production logistics and things like that. But when it comes to social media marketing, that I did have to hire someone part-time on a contract basis. And I did start with Upwork as well. And that was hugely helpful. So
I think that's, as you and I were discussing earlier, it's all about playing to your strengths and recognizing where you are actually, you're not passionate about a part of the business, and you don't need to give all your time to it if you can get the help in elsewhere. Fantastic. And that also brings me nicely onto, so I know talking about side hustles, more and more people these days have like multiple professional outlets and projects. And Sarah, I'm going to come to you first to talk about yours. So I know you obviously have this incredibly successful jewelry business, but you've also published books about making jewelry and you teach jewelry workshops. So tell me a bit about why it's important to you to have that mixture going on, and how you kind of manage it all and make it work.
It kind of didn't. It wasn't really intended. It was never a plan, if I'm honest. I moved down to Cornwall about 20 years ago, and we didn't have a lot of money. And there was this jewelry school here, and I started kind of teach workshops, and I really enjoyed it. It surprised me how much I enjoyed it, actually, because to begin with, it was just like a way of earning extra money. But I did get quite a lot back from. It's quite a two-way process when you teach workshops. From adults as well as kids. I've done School of Make, which is teenagers, but the adults, you tend to. It's a bit like brainstorming ideas, and so it was really. I did actually enjoy it, and then I thought, well, I'll have a go. My degree was communication studies, so I thought I'd have a go at writing the book, and I was really surprised that they published it. So I sent off lots of. I can't recall that ideas to the publishers, and it went ahead, and it was the kind of jewelry that I make, and it was kind of quite close to my heart because it's really affordable, and it was really it's got lots of recycled materials, and I'm mostly self-taught, so it's kind of to try and enable people to have a go themselves without having lots of expensive tools at home. So it's kind of like the whole basis of how I've come about making jewelry and making a business from it. So it felt comfortable for me to do that, and then the books kind of help the workshops, and it all sort of helps each other without really being intentional. I think people quite like to sort of know that you're doing other things. And with the School of Make, this is like free workshops I put on for teenagers in the local area. And that's quite nice. I've been really surprised at the good feeling that's come back from that, because that was just something I wanted to do, because there's quite a lot of poverty around where I live in Cornwall, and there's a lot of kids that don't get to go to the back to school clubs and everything else because the parents don't drive or they just haven't got money. And so it's something I wanted to do, but then I was really surprised at how many other businesses wanted to support that. So that's been a really nice way of, I think it just gives more depth to your daily working life when you can manage to do things that you want to do and feel like you're being part of the community as well, really. So I feel like it all kind of helps each other in a way. I just want to do that anyway, but then the benefit of that has also been that it's helped my sales, because it's kind of made me connect and collaborate with people that I might not have done without doing that, really.
Absolutely. And I guess also thinking from a practical point of view, when you have these different, doing the workshops as well as making jewelry, like if a pandemic happens and you can't do workshops, you've got all these different what's the word? Different
things to go, isn't it, really? And what surprised me as well, which I never predicted, was that people come on the workshops and then they buy jewelry.
Oh, perfect.
That's amazing. And then they go, well, can I buy this ring? I'm like, well, can you not make your own? But they're just to buy your own, and they've got to buy one of mine as well. So that was just a surprise, benefit from it, really. So I think sometimes I've just tried things out as I've gone along and to see what works and what I enjoy. And I think it either has to work financially, you have to enjoy it, otherwise it's pointless. So I'm just trying to be quite tough on making decisions like that, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And Karina, tell me about you and how you balance. I mean, you literally have obviously made a planner to keep your life in order because you have so many different things going on. How do you balance all of those different things, and yeah, how important do you find it to have the different projects going on at once?
Yeah, absolutely. So I find that there are seasons to everything in our business, and I always keep top of mind the different functional areas within the business that I need to make sure they're at the forefront of my planning. So what I find is that just because there's so many different shiny objects out there about, oh, learn how to get like 1,500 TikTok users onto your list, that doesn't mean that I should be focusing on that at that very moment, especially when I divide the year into quarters and I know exactly when I need to put my head down and design. I know exactly when, I need to focus on production. It's kind of like that, that making sure that I'm respecting the season of my life as well, like when my children are in school and, if I had to homeschool, like what would be the absolute minimum that I had to get done for the business? What was the critical path to making sure I would get the maximum result? So that's typically how I plan, to make sure that Ponder Lily like runs smoothly the way that it does. Like I know the seasons and the functional things I need to be doing within that season for the business. You won't necessarily see me on social media all the time because I outside of the business, I do want to make sure that customer service is so incredibly important to me, and that's something that never say never, but I will say I will never outsource that. So making sure that the sales within our wholesale network is going well. One of the things that I offer are workshops on how to use the planner and how people can make an intentional plan that suits their lifestyle other than something that they've seen work for other entrepreneurs. You all hear about people waking up at 5 a.m. and for creatives, like that may not necessarily be something that they want to do, right? And so I typically design workshops that not only helps with the sell-through rate of our product in like stores, but it's something that I really enjoy doing. And I figured that I was doing a disservice to our clients, not helping them make those empowered decisions with their time. It was just, I couldn't just hand them a plan and be like, okay, goodbye. Like, you figure it out now. So I found that those types of opportunities led me to other professional outlets that have been incredibly beneficial to me as a person and to the company as well. So I've not only taught these workshops to our retailers, like we've done them online during the pandemic. There are stores like we're, in Doha, Qatar, that if I'm visiting, they'll invite me over to give the workshop in person. Or sometimes even if they're fans of the business, we'll just say like, we'll give us an online workshop. We do provide free workshops to people who purchase our planners, like several times during the year. And I've taught this class at university level at Virginia Commonwealth University. They train designers. And when those designers then graduate and open their own graphic design business or interior design business or marketing agency, and they have families, they often want to know how to create that balance. And so I designed a curriculum around that as well. And that really speaks to some of the passions that I have. So I found that by reaching out to these professional outlets, like has helped me personally tremendously. It helps our customers, and it allows for multiple connections with people as well. So we broaden the network of who we come in contact with, and I think that can only be positive things that come from that. So
absolutely, yeah, that seems to all fit together really wonderfully, like go hand in hand with the planners and the workshops as well.
Yeah.
In the workshops as well, I mean, after the pandemic, I've really noticed, well, before that as well, I don't know about you, Karina, but people do them as a social, just for social reasons, for mental health. And I've underestimated that as well. But the amount of people that come along and say, I've just got divorced or somebody just died, and they want to do something that's going to make them feel better and positive and creative and organize their lives or whatever. So I think it's quite they're quite important, more important than I realised, really. And I think it is nice to sort of feel like you're helping people feel more positive as well, isn't it? It's got that knock-on effect, hasn't it? That you're helping them feel better about their lives.
Yeah, and it's so interesting to me that when I say that I do customer service, like, I mean it, right? So like sometimes people are often very surprised that if an email comes in, then I'll respond and they're like, oh, don't you only come? I'm like, yeah, I do. And that's why it's so important to me that you're happy with the product. If there's, sometimes during shipping and handling, there may be an issue, or if somebody gets a parcel and it's out in the rain, like we make sure we replace that. We want to make sure that, people are happy with the product and it arrives like well for them. So, and I find that even when that happens, when they don't have an initial like positive experience, because again, some things are out of our hands, especially like during the pandemic, there were so many delays. It helps when people are in touch with another human being to help them resolve their issue. And then because of that connection, people come back and they're like, how can I learn more, not just about how to use this product in particular, but to just learn more about productivity in general. So yeah.
Awesome. And Ashley, I know Creoate is much more than a full-time job for you, but did you have anything to add for this one?
Yeah, I definitely don't have a second professional outlet, but I do think it is really important to have another outlet. So, what I find, with Creoate, especially the first 2 years, it was all consuming. And there's, always challenges and, obstacles that you're overcoming. But what does help is when you have some type of outlet, whether that be an entrepreneur network or just physical activity, clear your mind. That's when I find that, creativity and new inspiration comes. So I'm definitely trying to do more of this, especially like the mentorship, working with other entrepreneurs, speaking to other entrepreneurs, because I think this is where, I'm looking for just opportunities and inspiration from other people. So yeah, doing more of that.
Great. And do you have any networks that you'd recommend in particular?
I really like podcasts because I found, so far I'm starting to search for ones locally now that we are, physically going back into the office. But I do have some podcasts which I find really, really helpful, because I think also running your own business, or even being the owner or the founder, can be quite lonely if you don't have someone to always share like the specific challenges that you're facing, whether it's managing a team or, the financial stuff. You don't want to share necessarily with everyone in the business. So podcasts, definitely. There's a couple of startup specific ones. I think it's called Startups. Startup Therapy it's called. I really enjoy it. It is just therapy because they talk about really, really good stuff. And I think it's a weekly podcast. So that's one of my favorites I listen to.
Nice. I'm actually going to make a note of that now. Awesome. And that, I keep saying that brings me on to my next question. I'll bring us on to our next question, which is the biggest learning curve or the hardest lesson that you've experienced from running your business. And Karina, maybe I could come to you first for this one. Tell us about what you've learned.
I've really learned to lean into my strengths because, as a mom to 5-month-old twins, who's a business analyst who worked a 9 to 5, and I turned around to my friends and family and said, I'm going to create a planner company. And everyone thought like, oh my goodness. And they gave me all the reasons why I shouldn't do it. And the purpose of it like spoke to me so much more that I couldn't like not do it. So the biggest learning curve for me has been to know when not to look at all the shiny objects that are around and try not to focus on the gap, the knowledge gap, that perceived knowledge gap that you feel that you have. So again, because I'm a business analyst, I was able to create very lean and efficient processes to help the company run very efficiently, instead of focusing on something that I didn't want to do in the first place, but the world was telling me to go on social media and point on TikTok, and I didn't want to do that because I'm generally very shy. And so I learned to stick to what I'm good at and like make sure that the quality of the product is on point always, and making sure that I lean into my strengths, and the business model can then go around it. Like I always knew that Ponder Lily was going to be relying like heavily on wholesale sales rather than like one-to-one, just because I know what it takes to run a lifestyle business, and I don't necessarily want to show people what I've had for breakfast, because porridge isn't always all that exciting. So I wanted to make sure, but I do realize the importance of social media. But I would say that the biggest learning curve that I've had is to focus on your strengths and make sure that you stay attuned to other opportunities that may be out there to expand on your business model and create a business model that really suits your personality on the way that you want to create a business that supports your life. So, and that you can still have a life within running a business. So.
100%. I think you won't be the only person, or you aren't the only person with that aversion to TikTok in particular. It's something I recognize in myself, but also,
completely get that. I'm not on TikTok, and sometimes I come on Instagram, I'm like, what are they doing?
Yeah, completely. And in our last online event, which was all about retail trends, we spoke about that a bit as well, the need to like not feel like you have to follow. It's important to not follow what everyone else is doing just for the sake of it. Absolutely. Sarah, how about you? What's the kind of hardest lesson you've learned from running your business?
Oh God, it's really hard actually to think about that, to analyze it, isn't it? I've done so much wrong. I think have confidence in yourself and not care so much about what everybody thinks. I think that's a big, and just looking at my kids growing up now, that's what I'm trying to get them to think about. Just have confidence and hold your nerve a bit, really. I think there's things I've done so many terrible shows and made some stupid decisions and wasted money, and it's like gambling. It's literally like gambling sometimes, isn't it? And I don't, the whole thing of having a business is like gambling, isn't it? But I think there's sensible gambling. There's really stupid gambling. So I think just maybe just slowing down a bit and considering things a bit more, not being so reactive. I think when I was younger, when I was first setting it up, I think I was like, I need to do everything, and I need to do this, and I need to say yes to everything. And it was almost like you run around like a bit like a headless chicken, and rather than just considering it and thinking about it and thinking, well, what's actually going to work for me? What do I want to do? How do I want to spend my time? And just be a bit calmer and a bit more knowing your own mind a bit more, really. I think, especially with a creative business, when you're making stuff, because I think a lot of people have, you have crisis of confidence where you think, oh, I'm making the right stuff, and people going to like it. And I think sometimes you've just got to almost put your head in the sand and get on with it and ask people if they like it or not, really. So I think it's probably the biggest learning curve now for me, really, where I'm at now, is that is having more confidence in myself and saying no to some things and having a weekend. I think that's really, you talk about the planning career is really making me think about that, because I think that's really important to have time for yourself so that you can recharge and get back to working hard the following week, really.
100%. And what's your thought process? So I'm imagining you have like lots of invites, like even like for this event, and what's your thought process when it comes to whether you accept them or not? Like how what makes an offer like valuable to you?
I think like the things that I'm pushing forward to do is like the School of Make, it's to do like sort of community things. It's all to do whether people actually want it, whether it's going to be effective, and if I know people are going to want to get on board with it. So I think it's just your own instincts, isn't it, to some extent, and knowing your customers. So I think there were shows that I went to where I should have known that my customers weren't going to be there and they're not going to buy from me. So rather than feeling like it's a place to be because everybody else is saying go there, I should have just thought a bit more. So I think it's like knowing your own instincts and seeing whether the people who are going to be there are actually interested in what you're making. I did a show in London. I mean, it was lovely. It was a really fashionable show, but it was it was when I got there, because everybody else's work was so angular and architectural and shiny and city-like, and my stuff looked really, because it was all like old found materials. And I had a lovely weekend. I've got chandeliers, people. I didn't sell much because it was just so far from my customer. Nobody wanted to wear what I was making. So I think you've just got to analyse it a little bit more and just maybe take a breath and think a bit more. Really.
Absolutely. And Ashley, how about you? What's your hardest lesson, biggest learning curve?
Yeah, I think the biggest lesson for me was around people. So, you know, even when I had the store, had the first e-commerce business, you know, you can't expect that people are going to be as excited about your idea and your business as probably you are, especially day one, you know. And for me, that meant spending more time with them, explaining. So when we had the store, we were selling all female-owned brands, sharing the stories of the brands that we were selling, like making, you know, because I was there, I was sourcing, I understood, I was really passionate about it, but making sure that I was, you know, how do I transfer that passion? How do I transfer the vision and the excitement to people? So that's something that, you know, even with Creoate today, with the store, something I do, just spend more time with people and make sure that that is, you know, being passed on to them as best as I can.
Awesome, thank you so much. And that brings me on to, sorry, I keep saying that, brings me on to our last point, which is, yeah, I'd like to just come to each of you really briefly to talk about your favorite productivity hack or resource. And then I've seen lots of lovely comments coming in, lots of people checking out both your businesses and wanting to buy some planners. So we'll, after that, we'll open it out to any questions from the audience. But yeah, favorite productivity hack or resource. And Ashley, I'll come back to you to start for this one.
Yeah, so I think I might have given one of my my resources away, which was the podcast. But I also read a lot. So, you know, whether I think we've talked about like marketing, digital marketing as a challenge. I mean, I come from a numbersy background, so I feel comfortable there. But when it came to marketing, I looked for a book. There's so many good books out there, great podcasts. You can listen while you're, you know, walking between two places, on the bus. There's so many good podcasts and books out there. So this has been my hack to educate myself in whatever I need to, whatever challenge I'm facing in the moment. And yeah, happy to share some specific examples with people if they have questions later on that.
Awesome. And Karina, how about you?
So I try to gamify my productivity, because you're not always going to feel like looking at your P&L, or you're not always going to feel like you know, taking measurements for boxes so that you can make more packaging decisions, right? So I ask my assistant Siri, you may have heard of her. I ask her to give me 15 minutes on the clock, and I think of a very delicious coffee that I'm going to have afterwards. And once I see that clock ticking, there is no stopping me. Because like I said, sometimes I would only have 15 minutes at a time. Like, twins don't always like sleep and wake up at the same time, like at least mine didn't. So when they were asleep and I had like just a little bit of time, I wanted to make sure that I was laser focusing on one thing. And I genuinely can say that I got so much more done by just making sure that because your time, like, if you give yourself an hour to answer certain emails, you're going to take an hour. If you give yourself less time, it's almost like you train your brain to be more efficient that way. So especially when I'm doing something that I don't particularly want to do, like if I gamify it that way and give myself a reward afterwards, like I feel like that helps me get over tasks that I don't necessarily want to do. And it will happen when you own your own business. You're not going to be looking forward to looking at finances or trying to figure out how to smooth out a form on Airtable or something like that. But you know it needs to get done, right? So I gamify my productivity.
Yeah. If I can add, actually, Hannah, I do exactly the same thing. And I know myself, I'm most productive in the morning. So I also smash through the important things in the morning, because personally, you know, afternoon, good for talking, meetings, maybe the social media. But yes, definitely second that. The sprint to the finish line of your task absolutely works. Yeah, I find that very helpful.
Nice. Yeah, I've got that the Pomodoro app on my phone, so I'm gonna have to give it another go. It sets you up with, I think it's 25 minutes at a time. And Sarah, how about you?
I've never tried that. I should do now. I should have a go at that. I don't know. It's really quite difficult. I think getting up in the morning, yes. Taking the dogs out. I think clearing my head. That's the main thing for me. Because if I get stressed, I'm just flip from one thing to another. So I think if I get out, take the dogs out, clear my head, go for a walk in the woods, and then I feel like when I get to the studio, my head's clear and ready to get working. And the rubbish tasks, yeah, I think do them before the fun bits, really, isn't it? It's just that whole reward thing, yeah. Just get them done. Coffee and cake is a big help, isn't it?
Agreed.
Very necessary.
Yeah, I'm the same. I really notice the difference if I like have been for a walk or something in the morning versus if I haven't. Great, thank you so much. I'm gonna take a look in the chat now to see what questions have come through, because I did see a few.
Yeah, I think there's also somebody that raised their hand if they would like to ask a question. Let me add them. There we go. Diva, I think you have a question?
I did ask my question in the chat box.
Oh, okay. Perfect.
I can repeat it if that's fine.
Was it
Sure.
was it around the different communities?
Yeah, just wondering, where do people go that are just starting up and, you know, get some advice from people that have done this, been there and done that? Because there's obviously a lot of things that, you know, you have questions about. Yeah, just wondering if anyone knows of any sort of community support groups for business owners, anywhere that someone can like look for a mentor, yeah, something like that.
I know a couple in the UK. So I know Virgin Startups does a lot of events. I think probably virtual, in person as well, a lot of resources as well for startups. There's also, I think it's called Entrepreneur First, or it's like an entrepreneurs network. I think there are more UK wide. I've definitely seen a lot of really good business resources there as well. And then, yeah, I think depending on where you are, I think there's a lot of, you know, within local, like your Chamber of Commerce or business communities as well. I'm seeing a lot of that. There's a lot of support in community. So it depends on what you're after, but hopefully those are some helpful starting points from my side.
I think set up your own. We did that in Cornwall. We've got about 1,000 people now, and it's all Makers Cornwall. It's a private group on Facebook, and it's really, really effective because it's everybody doing. Obviously, it's specific to us because we're makers, but it's people help you straight away. You get responses. It's really, really responsive. You get people know what they're talking about, and it's not. I found sometimes when I went along to business meetings when I first set up, it was all very suity, and people were very. It was a bit sexist as well. I've got to be honest. It was quite male orientated, and I don't know whether that's changed or not. But sometimes some breakfast meetings and everything else, it's quite macho, and I think it's quite nice for us to set up more of a female-led support group. I mean, men can join it as well, but it just tends to be a lot of women in there. I think it's just how they feel more comfortable networking, really.
Fantastic. I'm actually going to put on my marketing hat right now, because Creoate will have a Facebook group where you guys can all collaborate and ask questions and ask for support. And we will be promoting that fairly soon. So I just wanted to plug that in. Okay, marketing hat off.
I can see Veronica's suggested some great ones as well. She says Small Business Handbook on Instagram, and Princess Trust and Enterprise UK. And Debbie's also said she's found a lot of female-led communities organising on Facebook, so look for local groups on there. Great, I can see questions coming from Judy. 2 questions. So tips on contracting people when you can't afford to hire them, and then how do you know when to stop creating new products and focus on your business? Does anyone want to start off with contracting people when you're, yeah.
I didn't mention actually, Neve is somebody who works for me, and I got in touch with her she was a work experience person, so she came through the local college. She was an art design student, and it was really good because Obviously, she was quite skilled with creative skills, but she also, I could train her while I wasn't having to pay for her, which, you know, when you've a small business, you haven't got a lot of money free. So by the time I've started taking her on now to work for me, she's already trained up. So that was quite a good way of going about it. What was the other bit?
Nice, yeah. And how to know when to stop creating new products and I guess focus on the ones you have.
I don't think you ever stop creating new products, if I'm completely honest. I think you have to keep creating new products, but I think you have, I do it in collections, and I think sometimes it's quite good if you've got a release date or a show to work towards, because you can work towards that with a deadline, release it, say this is a new collection, then you're working on the next lot straight away, really. I think that's part of the fun of it, isn't it, really? If you're running your own business, that's the fun side of, that's how I feel, but maybe that's because I'm making actual things. Maybe it's different. I don't know, what would you say, Karina?
Yeah, like sometimes, you know, when creativity strikes, it just does, but it just doesn't mean that I'm going to make 5,000 units of that particular product, at least not at that particular time. So what I tend to do is that I you know, like Sarah said, I never stop making products, and a lot of the time, like, people will volunteer their opinion of what products we should make, and sometimes they're wonderful ideas. So I will continue to develop them, like, in my own time, and then when it's time, sorry, kids in the background. So when it's time to, I usually will make a decision based on the budget that we have available to mass produce a product, and then I'll survey our audience and then specifically include some of the products that I already have designs for, just to kind of test the market. Because to me, like, I like seeing the numbers behind making like an investment, right? So I will, like, basically survey them, and if it comes back that a certain percentage really, really want planner stickers, for example, which I never dreamed that I would be making planner stickers. I didn't think that my target client would want that, but, you know, last year what they wanted, planner stickers. So we made them.
And you don't always have to have it vastly different, do you? That's what I'm finding. So I make something and then you tweak it all the time. So it's not like your whole redesign of your whole business, but you're just constantly making the products better or more up to date. Or I think that just happens naturally, doesn't it? And I do feel like it's always, I mean, I don't mind doing social media, but it's always nice to have something to talk about on social media, isn't it? And I think people do quite like to see new things, and I think shops like to see new things. And you don't have to say the whole of my everything I ever make is completely different now. It's just nice to be constantly, you know, pushing it forward a bit, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, one of the things that I really love about Creoate is that when you see the followers that you have, sometimes, like, if I send them an email, I will actually ask, is there something in particular or a colorway that you'd be interested in? And in fact, we had one of the shops turn around and say, would you consider making something in this color? And it turned out to be our coral planner, and we made it specifically for that store. And it just happened that they didn't mind that, you know, it wasn't an exclusive product, which we do as well. Like, if there's one shop that wants something in a particular colorway, or if they want a certain cover, we will definitely do that, like, as a custom project. But it was just really nice to hear from what stockists want, because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that it's a mutually beneficial relationship too. And I could design planners all day, guys. So that just makes me happy.
Great.
All right, 50 different colors coming up.
Debbie's asked, do you have any tips on approaching retailers? I'm just starting wholesale consignment, and I get nervous at the idea of talking to retailers and persuading them to, for example, sign up to Creoate. Does anyone got any tips there?
Yeah,
I think, sorry.
I was just going to say, from being a retailer, what I would give the perspective of, rather than let you guys go, but you know, remember, I think in most cases, the retailers that you're approaching are probably independents, probably run by one person. Maybe there's a part-time person assisting. I remember my days from having the shop that, you know, you're working very long hours, your inbox is chaos. So, one, don't be offended if you don't hear back right away. You probably won't hear back the first time, and that's okay. Try other channels. It doesn't mean that they aren't interested, that they didn't see you. They probably saw you build some nice awareness of your brand there. So it's definitely worth, making that outreach. But, just remember they're as busy probably as you as a small business owner, and it might take a few tries. So just be persistent. And that's my perspective.
I think just try and remember that the people that they're, and it's all about building relationships up, isn't it? And I think even if there's a shop you really like, there's a couple of shops in London I wanted to get into, and then I did go and meet them and we just didn't really get on. So it didn't really work. Whereas there's people that maybe wouldn't have thought of approaching, and they might have approached me and that got better. So I think it's quite important that you get on, because then you work together on what you're going to be selling, don't you? I don't know. And I just think, I don't know what you think, Ashley, but I think it's a bit rude just to turn up, isn't it? I think if you want to talk,
not even for the brands, but I remember getting sold POSs and all kinds of stuff. And, if there's a customer there, that is potentially, the only sale of the day, or maybe the 2 sales of the day. So, the retailer might not have time for you. So I think, unless you've agreed to meet, I would meet people for coffees, but probably not going to get the warmest response if you just show up.
No, and I think I think it's that whole thing of like you say, you don't want to be pushy, do you? What I used to say, sometimes I used to say to people, to shops, "Oh, I'm going to be in your area. I'm not here coming especially for you. If you can't see me, it's fine." I think if retailers feel like you've been really fixated, it's a bit off-putting, isn't it? And it seems a bit full on, really.
Yeah.
What I'd like to add too is I know that from as a shop owner who's just starting out, sorry, as a maker who's just starting out, that was one of the 10-minute tasks that I dreaded, because I was just shy to approach, just even send the email, to approach a retailer in any capacity. So for the longest time, I didn't do it. And I remember talking to one of our suppliers. One of the products that we make is just right down the street from us in Newcastle. And they basically said, I think these wall calendars would look really nice at that shop. And then he actually gave me the name of the shop. And then so I said, I've actually got their number. Would you like me to arrange an introduction? And I was like, oh, okay, sure. So sometimes it's twofold. You might want to use your supplier network, and just ask them, or they might be happy to either arrange the introduction or give you the contact information of somebody that you can reach out to. And I know that those first emails to introduce yourself can be really for me as an introvert, it was really and one of the hacks that I used was to have them scheduled. So I wasn't hitting send, I was just pre-scheduling them, and I would just walk away and it would just go. So it took me a while to kind of psych myself out. And now that's one part of my day that I look forward to the most, is actually talking to stockists. And never underestimate the power of going back to someone who's already bought from you, because most of the time they might be willing to restock, but they because you haven't asked, you won't know, right? So and because shop owners are busy, they won't necessarily I don't know. So that's just my tip.
I do feel like, I know we're taking a mickey out of social media and everything else, but I do feel like that's been really helpful. I do, because I think they because people can check you out. So I've sent messages. I don't know what you think about this, Ashley, but I've sent messages on social media to people, just quick hellos, really.
Yeah.
And then I feel like they've looked at my account to see if it's the kind of stuff for them. So I think they get a feel for you, and they know whether they're going to be able to work with you or not. So that's
definitely. I was going to add the in the email, or definitely social media. I think having some type of visual story always really helps, because a lot of the independent shops will have a theme or something that they the values that they're focused on. So getting that across, the visual, to make sure that it fits the aesthetic of the shop and their customers, I think is definitely helpful. And for sure, social media is the fastest and best way to do that as well.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to add a few things. I hope I know a little bit about marketing. Um, if not, I don't know. Ashley might not be happy. But what I would say is I would completely agree with every single one of your points. Persistent is key. Multiplying those touch points. What is old is new again. Don't be afraid to actually send a letter with maybe a sample or maybe something. Don't be afraid to contact them on social media again, and be persistent. The squeaky wheel gets the grease, you know. Not that you should email them every day, but a good strategy. It's like, why haven't you responded? I've sent you 5 emails. That might not work, but if you spread it out and actually send an email and then maybe follow them on social media, maybe like one other things, and maybe send them in a direct message later on, and really plan it out and have a strategy and multiply the touch points where they see, oh wow, yeah, oh I remember this, oh I see that. I think that's a good. And I saw a comment in the chat about patience. Yeah, you know, that is key, and have and be persistent, and don't be afraid to try different things that you might think, oh, this will not work. Give it a shot, try it out.
I think there is an element of sometimes you could be trying really, really hard to get into a shop somewhere and they're just not right, and it's not going to work. And there's an aspect of, that's what I mean. I am not giving the Creoate a plug, but that's what's been so brilliant about it, because people have contacted me from parts of the country, parts of the world that I would never have targeted. I just would never have even known about them. So I think they've found us. That's really nice that way around, and that feels like, it's not, you've not got to work so hard at getting across what you're doing because they already know what you're doing. So I think I don't know. It sounds a little bit defeatist, but sometimes you have to let it go and maybe go with what is working and appreciate the customers you have got. There's an element of that sometimes as well, isn't there? Rather than battling for more and new, and that's not always that effective, I don't think.
Yeah, but yeah, plug Creoate. Don't worry about that. That's okay. I'm not going to complain.
I just wanted to squeeze in really quickly before we head off a last question from Susanna, who has asked a really interesting question, which is, when you're looking for a stockist, what should you be expecting them to do for you? So I guess, like, what makes a good stockist? Does anyone have any thoughts on that?
I think it's honest feedback is really helpful, actually. I think, as Karina was saying, it's really nice when people ask you for things, because you know that they know that that's going to sell, so you feel like you're making things that are going to be effective and actually sell through. I've got some lovely stockings, and when I went to do a trade show, Illustrated Living, Rose from Illustrated Living, she sat me down and said, well, look, when I go to trade shows, this is what I would like. I want a nice, clear price. I want to be able to see what the prices are. I don't want it to be too complicated. I want it to be straightforward. So it was really all that advice. It's like a two-way relationship then, isn't it? She was helping me get other customers, really. But I knew she was going to be honest with me about what she wanted for her shop as well. So I think honesty is really important, and working together really, and not being shy to say, let's try this and let's develop ranges together. I think that's really, from my point of view as a maker, that's really encouraging and helpful.
Absolutely. What Sarah mentioned, when they let you know what it is that they need, how they want the prices to show, so that you can make their lives easier, and have some way to communicate with them in the way that they like it. I like to typically send a little note saying, to say thank you, because there is a human on the other end of that email, so when I receive an order from Creoate, immediately I make sure that I get in touch and I say thank you for their order. If there's anything specific, if they'd like me to include a sample, or if they, I put in a thank you note, when we package their parcel. So those little touch points to remind the wholesaler, that the shop, that there's somebody who's going to look after them. I let them know the name of the person who's packaging their order. And if they have any questions or comments or anything like that, they can reach out to us, and someone will take care of them. So to me, a good retailer is somebody who will take us up on that, because like we love serving our clients. So yeah.
Yeah, I would just add, because we worked with a lot of really small startup brands when we had the store as well. And that was something that we did a lot of. Now, I don't know how much, like I was almost like obsessed with it, taking notes. The team was taking notes in the shop, whether it was fit, because we had a lot of fashion, whether there were colors, missed sales, as a retailer was something that, we were always really trying to improve. Like, how could we get more people that came in to find what they wanted? So I always tried to give feedback, but then sometimes it's just not a good fit. And especially when a retailer is a multi-brand, multi-product. So fashion, we had fashion, stationery, beauty, and sometimes they just don't work, and you tried it out and there's no hard feelings. And I think you also have to be okay that, you both tried your best, and maybe there's somewhere else that's a better fit, or maybe the trend's just not right for the moment. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. I'm going to wrap it up there, which just leaves, the last thing is to thank all of you so much for taking part today. And thank you also to everyone who's attended. Like, sometimes the chat can be a bit quiet in these events, but it's been so nice to see so many comments pouring in and answering each other's questions and saying how much you're going to be checking out Pond Lily and Sarah Jewelry. So that's been really lovely to see. If you do think of any questions after this, feel free to reach out to me or any of the panelists here. So I'm hannah@creoate.com, and we'll try and get you an answer to your questions. But yeah, thank you all so much for giving up your time to come and join our event today and be on the panel. It's been really lovely to have all three of you. And well,
thank you. Enjoyed it.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.